What's up, everybody? I hope you're doing well, and don't mind the change of scenery. I am just too pregnant to batch film at this point, so I'm just filming videos whenever I can, and today we're in my private practice office. Welcome if you haven't seen this background before. But today we're going to focus on the question of whether you're cut out for private practice. And I'm going to spoil it right up front that this is sort of a misnomer of a title, because I honestly think anyone who wants to be in private practice is cut out for private practice, and it's more of a question of what kind of private practice setting is the best fit for you and your personality. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about some of the different contexts that someone might choose to work in private practice, some of the pros and cons of each, and who's best suited for each of these contexts. So let's get into it. Welcome to Private Practice Skills. I'm Dr. Marie Fang, psychologist in private practice. I post videos offering tools I learned the hard way about starting and growing private practice so that you don't have to. Now, I've been working in solo private practice right now. I'm self-employed. I don't have any employees, so that's what I mean by solo private practice. And many of my videos then are geared towards offering information on how to start and grow your solo private practice, because that's what I'm familiar with. But there are actually so many different contexts that you could work in private practice, and I've also worked myself in a few of these different contexts in the past as well. And I really think that if you want to work in private practice, one of these options is likely to be a good fit for you. And also in different seasons of life, different contexts might be a better fit. So without further ado, let's get into some of the different types of private practice you could work in and the pros and cons of each. First is working as an employee in a group practice. So this is when you work as a W-2 employee, either for a single clinician or for a group. Now, there are several potential advantages to working as a W-2 employee in a group practice, and one is that as a W-2, you are legally required to make at least minimum wage, but often in a group practice setting, you're receiving some sort of steady salaried paycheck, or maybe you receive a flat rate for every single client hour that you work. So there's opportunity for stable income. Also, as a W-2 employee, there's a potential that your employer may offer you some pretty sweet benefits, such as health insurance and the option to invest in a 401k, for example. Now, the employer isn't required to offer you these kinds of benefits, but they are able to offer you these kinds of benefits, and hopefully they offer you some of them to make the position more enticing. And as a W-2 employee, usually your employer has a fair amount of oversight, which means that they are more likely to offer you things like consultation, supervision, training. So there's access to a lot of tools and resources in this kind of setting most often. Now, with that said, there are some potential cons to working in a group practice as a W-2 employee. These can vary depending on the specific group, but because your employer has a lot more oversight and control over the work that you do, then it's possible that they may just be totally in charge of setting your schedule and even who you get to see on your caseload. So you may not be able to set your own hours or decide whether you're taking on a potential client or not, or even how many clients you're able to see in 1 week. Another potential con is that if you are making a set salary, though it is really nice that you have that salary coming in regardless of how many clients you're seeing, you're not incentivized to take on more clients, because whether you're seeing 15, 20, 25 clients or more, you're making the same salary. And so you don't want to take on more clients, but your employer is incentivized to have you have as many clients on your caseload as possible, because the more clients they see, the more profits they make, since they're not giving you any of that money after a certain point. So that can be a big con. This context in private practice could be a really good fit for folks who are really interested in focusing on that steady salary and maybe some of the benefits that hopefully that employer offers as well. And maybe you're also wanting to benefit from things like trainings, consultation, etc., that a particular group offers, if that's something that you're wanting to still build up while still getting paid for it. This is also a great fit for people who are not really interested in learning the business side of private practice and would like somebody else to do all the marketing for them. Usually in this context, your caseload gets filled for you. The next category of private practice is working as a 1099 contractor, either for an individual therapist or for a group practice. And in this scenario, you usually receive a cut of your client fee, usually a percentage of your client fee, while your employer covers the majority of your overhead expenses. Some of the advantages of working as a 1099 contractor in private practice is you tend to have a lot more agency over your schedule, both how many many clients you see per week as well as when you see clients. So that can be an advantageous thing for a lot of people. Another advantage is you don't have to pay rent or a majority of other overhead expenses. So even though you only get a cut of your hourly rate from your clients, you don't have to worry about paying for very many things to keep your practice running. So that's really great if your practice is pretty small or you're just starting out. And another advantage of working as a 1099 is the more clients you see, the more money you make. And if you're getting a salaried paycheck, the more clients you see, the same money you make. So if you want to see more clients, you can earn more money. Some of the cons of working as a 1099 contractor are, well, depending on the specific group that you work for, it may be possible that you're still fully in charge of doing all of your own marketing, scheduling, booking. So you definitely would need to know some of the business side of how to run a private practice. This is something that really varies from one group to the next, so that's something worth asking about if you're applying to be a 1099 contractor. Another huge con of being a 1099 contractor is if you don't see clients, you don't get paid. This is not a salaried gig, so when you're first starting out and building your caseload, you're not making any money. Another con is because you're just a 1099 contractor, you don't get any benefits like you would as a W-2. There's no option for health insurance, 401k, and things like that. And a huge con that snags a lot of people as a 1099 contractor is, especially once your caseload starts getting pretty consistently full, you start to realize that because your employer is taking such a significant cut of your rate, that you're making far less money than you would if you were working for yourself in solo private practice, seeing the same amount of clients, even though you would then also be responsible for overhead expenses as well. So a 1099 contractor position is best suited for either people who are just kind of getting started in private practice and their caseload is still quite small, or for folks who want to kind of keep their private practice on the side. You're doing something else with your main income earning hours, or maybe you're just focusing your energies on something else. You're a caregiver to family members or something like that. But this isn't very well suited for folks who want to work full-time and want to scale their income upwards, because I'm telling you, if you work full-time as a 1099 contractor, you will be earning less money than if you were seeing those same clients in your own private practice. The next category is working part-time in your own solo private practice. So this is when you're working for yourself and nobody else, even if you are just a sole proprietor offering exclusively teletherapy from your home. Some of the pros of doing part-time solo private practice is you're fully in charge of your own schedule, how many clients you see, and you're also in charge of how much money you make, because not only do you decide how many clients you see, but you also get to set your own rate. And unlike the 1099 type position that we just covered before this one, after you've covered your overhead expenses, all of your client revenue that happens above and beyond that, you get to keep almost 100% of that as profit, rather than needing to still funnel a cut of your rate to somebody else. And one of the cons of working in solo private practice, whether part-time or full-time, is you are 100% in charge of marketing your own practice. Now, even though this is often the case as a 1099 contractor as well, you can rely on getting at least some clients referred to you from your employer, even if it's not all of your clients. And when you're working for yourself, there's nobody doing that for you. And another huge con that deters people from doing solo private practice, even part-time, is you are completely in charge of all of your overhead expenses. And even if you are working from home offering teletherapy, there are still overhead expenses to account for. And if you're not seeing any clients, it's possible that you're bleeding out money while you're waiting to fill your caseload. This option is best suited for people who really are after that flexibility of setting their own schedule, setting their own income, and who are fairly self-motivated and are willing to get their systems set up that otherwise their employer would be setting up for them. Solo private practice really isn't the best fit for folks who need to have that steady paycheck coming in right away, or who don't have the financial flexibility to have some overhead costs up front before they start generating that income, at least not yet. You can save that money. It's also not really well suited for folks who could use a little more hand-holding as far as their clinical training, because you're really on your own in solo private practice. Now, the next category is the same as the last one, but just working full-time for yourself. Many of the pros are just the same as working part-time, but one additional pro of working full-time as a solo private practice is you have the highest income earning potential in this category without taking on employees. So if you're wanting to make the most money possible, but you're not really interested in hiring employees to work for you, then full-time solo private practice has the highest income potential. You can set your own schedule. Once you cover your overhead expenses, all the clients that you see after that are almost all profit, and no one else is taking a cut of your rate. And you can kind of keep increasing your rate as you get more experience and all that good stuff. Now, a significant con of working in full-time solo private practice is now 100% of your income depends on the success of your practice. And if you're working in part-time private practice, maybe you're doing it on the side of another job that's paying the bills or offering healthcare or whatever it might be. So if your practice declines when you're working in it full-time, then it's a huge blow. Also, as you scale your practice up to full-time, your overhead expenses do tend to scale up as well. Maybe not quite as much if you're offering teletherapy, but if you're working part-time, you could sublet somebody else's office for pretty cheap. But if you're working full-time and you get an office like this one, man, it's expensive. Full-time solo private practice is best suited for people who really love doing full-time client work and who are self-motivated enough to learn the business savvy side of things to make sure their practice is consistently full because, yeah, your whole income depends on it. This category is not so well suited for people who don't really want to do client work full-time or who maybe don't want to take on some of the other business aspects of private practice, though you can hire people to help you with things like your bookkeeping and marketing and things like that. That does cost more money. And that brings us to the last category of private practice, at least that I'm familiar with, and that's running your own group practice, which essentially means taking on employees of any form, whether they're W-2 employees or 1099 contractors, or if you do a sort of co-op with other therapists. I'm not going to break down all those different categories of group practices, so I'm just going to lump the pros and cons of all of them together. Some of the pros of running a group practice are you have an endless amount of possibility when it comes to scaling up your income because, well, if you work in full-time solo private practice, yeah, you can keep seeing more clients, but there's a cap, right? You can't just keep seeing, 50, 80, 100 clients a week to scale your income upwards. And also there's a cap on how much you can raise your rate. But if you hire on employees, you're taking a cut of profits from each employee and your limits are only bound by how many employees you're willing to take on. So it's possible to make quite a bit of money as a group practice owner. Another advantage is you don't have to do full-time client work as a group practice owner, and it opens up other opportunities for how you invest in your interests, whether it's taking on interns that you supervise or just other items outside of running a group practice. And another advantage of running a group practice is you have a greater potential of making an impact on the community. As one person running a solo private practice, I can only see so many clients, but if I have a group of employees working for me, well, potentially I could help a significant chunk of community and have an impact kind of culturally in the area, not just on some of these individual clients that I work with. So that's a pretty sweet advantage of working in a group practice, of running a group practice. There it is. Now, a significant con of running a group practice is your overhead expenses go way up, even just taking on one 1099 contractor employee. So you have to have enough profits coming in that it justifies bringing on one employee, let alone several employees. Also, this is both a pro and a con, but you're totally in charge. You're running not only your own business, but the livelihood of other people as well. And if something happens where you're not doing well, you need to take time off or whatever, the business is still dependent on you. Now, I'm not a group practice owner, but I know there's tools available to help streamline your business, so it's not really all dependent on you in that way, but that's something that you need to navigate and kind of have that pressure or burden when you're running a group practice. Running a group practice is best suited for folks who are maybe a little bit more entrepreneurial minded, maybe don't want to see clients full time and enjoy some of the business behind the scenes aspects of running a group practice. And running a group practice is maybe not suited for folks who are pretty risk averse or who just don't like carrying the burden of being responsible for other people's paychecks in addition to their own paycheck. So really check in with yourself before taking on an employee to see if it's a good fit for your personality. Well, those are the main categories of private practice that I'm most familiar with, and it's also worth noting that there are more nuances, like whether you decide to take on insurance or not, that I didn't get into in this video. And I also want to repeat that it's not like one type of private practice is a one and done best fit for that person. So for me, I've been in a few different categories of private practice along the way: group practice, solo part-time, solo full-time, and now I'm back to solo part-time again. Who knows, maybe someday I'll take on an employee, but not today. So really evaluate what fits you best in your current season of life, because all of those options fit me well for the time that I was in then. But hopefully this helps you answer the question, are you cut out for private practice? Well, if you're interested in private practice, the answer is yes. And hopefully it's helped you figure out, maybe for now, what might be the best kind of private practice to work in at the time being. And before we close, I'd like to thank TherapyNotes.com for sponsoring this video. TherapyNotes is a practice management system that helps you with scheduling, notes, billing, and so much more. And they have a telehealth platform that is included for all of their members. So if you have TherapyNotes, you have a free telehealth platform included. If you'd like to check out TherapyNotes, you can get 2 months to try it for free with no commitment just by clicking the link in the description of this video. Well, I hope you found this video helpful, just kind of a quick overview of the different types of private practice, and let me know in the comments what kind of private practice is the best fit for you right now. And until next time, from one therapist to another, I wish you well.